Well, this gets to the fundamental heart of the breach of the social contract that this thing was always set up to do. It was really set up in 1948 when George Kennan created this NSC 10-2, this National Security Council. We completely reoriented the structure of the American empire in 1948 after World War II. In 1947, we passed something called the National Security Act. That's what established the CIA. That's what established the National Security Council, which coordinates all of our foreign-facing empire management work. It renamed the Department of War to the Department of Defense so that it didn't look like we were, acquiring territory by military force, which had just been banned under international law, under the UN Declaration of Human Rights. And so we moved from primarily kinetic warfare into what George Kennan called, just 2 months before he created the plausible deniability doctrine that we live under, he called this organized political warfare. And he has a great memo from April 30th, 1948. It's just 12 days after the CIA's first operation, first time it ever overthrew or rigged the election of a foreign government. This was the April 1948 election in Italy that pitted a pro-Western candidate against a sort of pro-Soviet candidate. And so the U.S. State Department felt it was essential to tip the scales of that election because it showed that the pro-Soviet candidate was winning 60-40. This is all declassified, and all the major people who were involved in that operation have all come out and said this publicly. So this, the CIA, basically we threw together this ramshackle effort to tilt that election by pumping in propaganda, by using charities and churches as fronts to funnel money into the pro-Western political party. We piped in, the Greta Garbo movies and whatnot. We worked with some very very seedy elements of Italian society there. We worked with the mafia, and we worked with mafia-connected unions because these were all assets for the War Department during World War II because Mussolini was cracking down on them. So the War Department had a relationship with these organized criminal networks to serve as a beachhead against Mussolini. But we kept those relationships in order to run this pro-democracy regime change thing. So in 1948, when we established the secrecy doctrine that we now live under, and all these NGOs work under this cover effectively because of their sponsoring organizations, USAID or CIA or state. And he called it the inauguration of organized political warfare. And what he said is, we need to create a covert apparatus to hide what we do from the rest of the world, to do secret political warfare on the low. And the problem is the American people are not going to like this. The American people do not understand the intricacies of international relations. They think there's always an easy political cure-all, and they do not understand. They think there's a fundamental difference between peace and war. And what he proposed is, and this is just 2 months before this would formally be given to the CIA to do. But at the time, what he said was, this worked gangbusters in Italy. We need to replicate this everywhere. We need to create a capacity to do black propaganda, to do economic sabotage, demolition. There's a whole list of what's authorized under NSC 10-2. And what he says is, the American people are not necessarily going to like this, and we're going to need to effectively hide what we do from them, because if they find out, then the rest of the world finds out. If we're trying to run an operation in Eurasia, and we report this in U.S. News, well, then any person in Eurasia who reads U.S. News now knows about it. And so that was authorized at the time with simultaneous with the Smith-Mundt Act, which are you familiar with the Smith-Mundt Act?
Is that the 2011, 2012 thing where Obama allowed people to use propaganda against United States citizens?
Yeah, that was what was done then under Obama was the effective repeal of it. It was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. But the modernization got rid of the whole purpose of it, the firewall, because at the time the media and media control was seen as the linchpin crux of winning the Cold War, piping in pro-U.S. Media influence because everything moved after World War II from kinetic warfare and military occupation. We used to militarily occupy the Philippines, for example, after we won the Spanish-American War. But that was banned under international law, territorial acquisition by military force in 1948. So we had to win elections, and we had to influence the passage of laws in foreign countries by having an apparatus inside those countries that influenced the hearts and minds of people, which influenced who they voted for, which then determined the government. So you had to move towards political vassalage rather than military occupation. And what the Smith-Mundt Act did is, simultaneous with the creation of this in 1948, Congress recognized the Frankensteinian monster they were creating by authorizing a covert, permanent Department of Dirty Tricks, and this is their phrase, not mine, to do this cloak and dagger, to infiltrate and co-opt the universities, the unions, the media, the politicians, the judges, the whole swarm army. You know, what I have been calling for a long time the USAID Truman Show, because it's, you know, these people in these foreign countries have no idea, you know, how many of the things they interact with that are effectively a movie set being constructed by the U.S. State Department and its sister influence orgs. So it was always designed to say, listen, you can do this dirty stuff abroad, but it can't come home. We have and even that protection, which lasted for 70 years, and we only lost it a decade ago. We're up against a much actually deeper, darker problem with this USAID scandal, and as people will see increasingly, the scandals that will break open at the Pentagon and the State Department, which is that we have a Smith-Mundt problem for funding and operations. It's not just propaganda. The Blob, our foreign policy establishment, can fund groups that effectively work with prosecutors domestically, or that work at media. You know, dual use. We give them foreign grants to do media propaganda abroad, but they operate here. Or social media censorship, to coerce foreign countries to pass foreign censorship laws that explicitly and are intended to attack U.S. social media companies and in U.S. peer-to-peer speech. So we need that protection. If we're going to keep this function at all, we need a hard firewall and absolute grotesque penalties for any violation.